Here we go. All right, we are going to go live now on all platforms. Hey everyone, Jeremiah Demray here, founder of Advisorist. I have our special guest today for our very first crypto fireside chat. Welcome everybody. Thanks for your patience. We got started a little bit late today. We just had a few tech issues. We had a few sound issues before, so that's why we're a little bit running late. If you guys wouldn't mind, in the for if you're watching us on Zoom right now, in the Q&A, would you mind just giving us a thumbs up or say yes, hello? Let us know you guys are excited and fired up to be here, because we want to make sure that the sound is okay. Yes, good. Ken, Justin, Tanya, Greg, awesome. Hey, Janet, good to see you here. Robert, good to see you. Excellent. Ready to rock? Beautiful. Awesome. Appreciate you guys. We're live streaming on Facebook Live, LinkedIn Live, and YouTube as well. So if you've got a platform you prefer to hang out on, you can find Advisorist. On LinkedIn, just go to my personal profile and you should see me streaming there. Guys, I am really excited about today's class. I've got a personal story that I'll share with you in just a moment, but this handsome guy that you see to my right or left, depending on where he's at, I guess I owe him quite a bit of thanks and gratitude, because he's the one who told me about crypto when to be honest, I wasn't paying attention the way I should have been. And the relationship that I've developed with Jeff and his wife and his team, and all the amazing stuff they're doing at Nabers Wealth, has absolutely changed and transformed my life and our portfolio. And in a conversation with Jeff, I said, Jeff, we have to bring this to the community of advisors, because frankly, no advisor ever brought this information to me in a logical, sane way that didn't reek of like hyped up YouTube guys sitting on their Lambo taking selfies. And it just made sense. And just a little bit about Jeff. Jeff, I don't know if you guys ever saw the movie The Big Short, where it was four guys who foresaw the housing crisis of 2008, and they ended up shorting the market. And while everyone else lost hundreds of billions of dollars, they made hundreds of millions of dollars. And Jeff was one of those. He wasn't one of the guys in the movie, but by himself, as he was heavily invested in real estate, over a year before the shorting, the crisis happened, he sold everything, cashed out, shorted the market, and even went into retirement. And then later got into crypto in 2013, and has now been, has since then developed an RIA and a wealth management practice, where he not only does traditional asset classes like most of you, but also leverages crypto, but in such a unique way that we wanted to bring this. So part of our advisors' mission here at Advisors is to be a force for good and to help advisors thrive. And sadly, I don't think the industry is doing a great job right now of giving you logical, intelligent thinking and explanation around the crypto market. If you guys agree with me on that, give me the word agree down below. Just let us know that you're on the same page with us, because I'm excited we've got an intimate group of people, because I know that not everybody embraces this yet, but that means we're talking to the right people. Because if you're on this call, that means you understand what's happening, or at least you're curious enough to say, you know what, I got to lean in on this and at least keep an open mind. And that's all we're asking you to do today, is just keep an open mind. Whether you're already invested in crypto, or you're thinking about it, or you still think it's something that is not worth your time. With that said, Jeff, thank you so much for being here. Really appreciate and excited that we're going to start doing these to help people. Welcome.
Awesome. Thank you for that intro. It's great to see a lot of people here. I remember being at a RIA event, probably in, I can't remember what year ago it was a few years ago, and I overheard a couple of advisors talking to each other. I just heard the word Bitcoin, and they just went, I just wish it would go away. Because this guy then went on to complain about how his clients wouldn't stop asking about it. And he obviously just didn't want to have to learn, didn't want to have to adapt. And at that moment, that's when I realized, for the advisor world, that guy was Blockbuster Video. And Netflix is on the scene here. And so I think all of you, by showing up here today, you really have an opportunity to be Netflix to that guy's Blockbuster Video. Another thing that really comes to mind as we get started today is, when you all, I haven't been on airplanes in a while since COVID, but we've all been on airplanes, and we all remember that moment when they say, if the oxygen mask drops down, place the one on yourself first before you would help those around you. And I think that's kind of, a good metaphor for what I think is the best way to start to take the baby steps of embracing Bitcoin and crypto as a whole and help others with it. You really can't speak from a place of truly being able to help others until you help yourself. So let's see what we can do to help you help yourself today, and then maybe it becomes something where you help others too. So I have a few slides. I'm going to share my screen. Let me know if you can see it here in a moment.
While you do that, I want to give a shout out to Kit, who's watching us off of LinkedIn. Welcome, Kit. We also see Eric. Eric's definitely agreed. He's a financial services professional. Kit is a fiduciary. So that makes me really excited to see folks like you here on the call today, and you're publicly engaging. By doing so, you're sending a signal, by the way, to the world that you see what's happening. And I'll tell you guys a funny story that happened. This morning, I was on my bike, not on the road, but on my, my spinning bike. And I was doing a little research, just trying to think to say, what's going on in this world? Like, what are people already saying about financial advisors and crypto? So I literally started typing into Google, financial advisor crypto. And you know what Google suggested? Financial advisor that does crypto assets near me. Now, if Google has started recommending that as a search, Google knows everything. That means that there's people out there looking for advisors who know and understand crypto. So I just wanted to give a shout out to all of you guys watching us on whatever platform, because you guys are truly the 1% who get it. All right, Jeff, thanks.
Yeah, definitely agree with that. So the first thing I want to lay out here is we're really going to dig into Bitcoin and not quote unquote crypto, because crypto doesn't exist without Bitcoin. Bitcoin is the first cryptocurrency, and that doesn't make Bitcoin like MySpace to a coming Facebook. Actually, for a lot of reasons, we're not late to Bitcoin. We're extremely early to Bitcoin. When people think that they're late to Bitcoin, it's because they don't understand where Bitcoin is going. And I have a strong belief, net of all of the thousands of hours of research that I've done and the experience in investing and working with this technology, that Bitcoin is in the process of becoming a tens of trillions of dollar asset class. So as an asset class, if it's going to become, say, worth $30 trillion, which I think that's probably the base case. There's a much larger case to be made. But if that's where Bitcoin is going and it's at $1 trillion, can we all agree that we're not late? We're not late if, more than 95% of the maturing, of the growth, of the potential profit is still ahead of us. So I want to start things off by making sure that you don't make the number one mistake that people make when they first get into this, and they think, wow, Bitcoin has grown in value by over 50 million%. 50 million%. How much higher could it go? Well, the answer is potentially a lot higher. So we're going to really focus in on Bitcoin. And the other cryptocurrencies, or crypto assets rather, there's some interesting things going on there, but you really want to focus on Bitcoin first. And Bitcoin is by far the largest opportunity from a matter of an investable asset class. And Bitcoin is its own asset class. So really, if we zoom out, Bitcoin is new money for the digital era. And it's really designed to become a reserve asset, much like gold became the reserve asset for the international monetary system during the Industrial Revolution. Ethereum and DeFi are areas of crypto that we're not going to have the scope and time to dig into today. Those exist, those are exciting. We're definitely going to focus on Bitcoin. So let me switch over to the live chart here. Okay, so the first thing that we want to do is just understand there's like a secret power that you get. in 2 clicks. Really, actually, yeah, 2 clicks. I already did one of them, but if you look at a Bitcoin chart, this is Trading View, by the way. That's what I like to use to look at charts. The first thing that's going to happen is usually you're going to have it pull up and it's going to look something like this. And you're going to be looking at the past couple of weeks or past couple of months. The 2 clicks to get into the insiders, insight club with Bitcoin is to change it to weekly candles so that you can zoom all the way out for the full history of Bitcoin. And then the crucial click is to click this button that says log. Now I want to do that again for you. Think about what your thoughts and feelings are about this chart when you're looking at it, and then think about what the difference is when you look at this one. The interesting thing here is it's actually the same exact data that is being plotted, but Bitcoin is an asset that has been growing exponentially and logarithmically. And the default setting for charts, including the ones they show you on TV and news and other newsletters and things, are going to be linear charts. And the problem with linear charts is they're not made to represent logarithmic assets correctly. So this is a chart that looks a lot like a bubble. The log chart looks a lot like something that is steadily growing where the ups are more than the downs, right? So like here it is starting out in, say 2011 when the data first became really available here for the Bitstamp exchange. And, we're at $2.80. And here today we're at $57,000. Do you see anything in the chart that suggests we're heading back towards $2.80? No. And the key to that is to look at the logarithmic chart. So that's really kind of like real Bitcoin 101. And most people out there have still not yet graduated to Bitcoin 101, which is really the starting point. Now, Bitcoin really matters not because Bitcoin's great. In fact, if you go out there and if you find the people who have profited the most from Bitcoin, they're not the people who know the most about Bitcoin. They're the people who know the most about the dollar. And the sort of inconvenient truth about the dollar is that it is architecturally what's known as fiat money or fiat currency. And the history of fiat currency is pretty shocking that it's not front of mind when you hear people think about and talk about money. I mean, we all wake up and use money throughout the day. We trade a big portion of our lives for money, and yet most of us don't know what money is, where it comes from, how it works. The basics of it are, first off, we have to understand the United States, the most wealthy country in the world, was founded literally on saying we're never going to have fiat money. So fiat money goes thousands of years back. It starts out with a money called the jiaozi in China over a millennia ago. And every time that a fiat money is adopted by any society, over the long enough period of time, it always goes to zero and fails and falls apart and is replaced by something else. And usually it gets replaced by gold. And it's very simple, and that's because of dilution, right? So if you all of a sudden own 100 shares of stock and there's 1,000 shares out there, you own 10% of that company. But what if you continue to own 100 shares and you wake up tomorrow and there's 10,000 shares? Your shares may have stayed the same, but the actual slice of the whole pie just got massively diminished. So I like to think of inflation really as dilution, because inflation focuses on prices out in the economy. Dilution is what matters. Dilution is, hey, you just created more of these units, and now my units represent less. And this is what happens throughout history is kings, rulers, parliaments, presidents, or in this case, chairmen of the Federal Reserve, they print money, oftentimes to deal with wars or crises, and the money printing dilutes the value of that money. And unchecked, it usually leads to a hyperinflation. This is a mathematical thing. No matter how great USA is, we cannot defy the mathematics and the basics of economics. So there's this cycle throughout history where societies go back and forth between having hard money or sound money, which is almost always gold. And it's called hard because it's hard to invent more gold. You have to go out and spend resources mining gold, and it takes 10 years to get the payoff. And net of all of that, the gold supply is only diluted by about 1.5% per year. So gold is hard to dilute. Paper money is easy to dilute. So we have the most important economic cycle to be aware of is the cycle of hard and easy money. So, every great society is built on the foundation of hard money or a gold standard. And that's the case in the United States. Our biggest economic growth was in the 1800s on a gold standard. And the economic growth of the 20th century was largely based on the microchip. Okay, I digress. Let's get back on track, Jeff. So you have hard money. And then what happens is it starts losing its value, it goes into a hyperinflation. Then all of a sudden, people find themselves at like the baker, and the baker's going, I can't accept that paper money because it has no value. And so he says, you have to pay me with gold or a gold coin or a paper money that's backed by gold so that I can feed my family with it. And I can buy other goods and services. So then very quickly and chaotically, societies tend to all of a sudden remember that they need to go back to hard money for stability. So this has happened over and over and over again. And what's interesting is that's the biggest cycle, and it's actually coinciding with the other biggest cycle. So let's step back to be clear here. The dollar is a fiat money, and there's not a single fiat money in history that hasn't eventually failed. We've tried it dozens, maybe hundreds of times. Every societal attempt at a fiat money temporarily works, and over the long term, 100% failure rate. So it's a pretty good idea to acknowledge that maybe the dollar will fail because every other pre-dollar currency that's built the same way did fail. So we need to at least be aware of that possibility. The other thing about the dollar is it's not only a fiat money, it's a global reserve currency. In 1946, we met in Bretton Woods, Connecticut, and all kinds of governments from all around the world met, and they agreed to let the dollar become the reserve currency because the dollar was a hard money from its gold backing. So the United States, it convinced the whole world to basically settle all the transactions ultimately in the dollar by backing all the other currencies in the dollar. And as we can see here, that makes the dollar the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6th global reserve currency. Now you'll notice something just like fiat money, there's something interesting here. Every other global reserve currency eventually lost that global reserve currency status. Today, China, Russia, and a whole host of other countries are all making moves to undo the adoption of the dollar as a global reserve currency because of the amount of money that the Federal Reserve is printing. So all of this matters because we always historically have ended up back at gold to sort of reset or reboot a monetary system that has failed. And Bitcoin is digital gold. Bitcoin really has the properties of gold, namely the scarcity, the fungibility, divisibility even to a greater rate. There are properties of gold that is the reason why it always becomes what we reset back to. Bitcoin has all of those properties in a digital way where there are higher levels of security, lower cost of storing, and many advantages for Bitcoin. Bitcoin also has better risk-adjusted returns than all other asset classes. Even just drilling into the assets of so what are some of the best performing investments of recent time? The FANGs, Facebook, Apple, Amazon, Netflix, Google, right? So here's a chart. It might take a moment here to sort of grasp what this chart is doing here. But down here, the further that one of these investments lands to the right, the more you can lose to its volatility, the more risky it is, the more potential it might draw down and crash down. And then the higher something is towards the top, you're getting a reward for that risk. So for example, here's classic investments, right? So we have 10-year treasury bonds, we have gold, we have the S&P 500 from 1971 to 2020. So this first little dot here is showing us that we're dealing with something like 8% volatility to make something like 5% return. So that's kind of the starting point. Then if you look over here to like Facebook, all of a sudden Facebook, we're dealing with much higher volatility, but we're getting higher return. All of a sudden we're getting annualized return from 2012 to 2020 of around 30%. 30% annualized return, you're beating Warren Buffett. You're beating Tiger Global. You're beating the best investment managers in the world. And then if you take even more risk over here, you've got Google, and you take more risk, but you actually made less than on Facebook. With Apple, you took more risk in terms of volatility, but made less. So Facebook has been really great. Google almost as good. Apple almost as good. Netflix, now you're finally getting more return for your risk, and same thing as Amazon. So these are the best investments that have probably been in your portfolios.
Just out
Bitcoin
of
now.
curiosity, Jeff, I just want to get a quick audience pulse, if I may.
Yeah.
So by the way, thank you guys for these wonderful comments coming in. Ken is saying, wow, this has already been worth my time in the first 20 minutes. Very enlightening. Thank you, Ken. Appreciate you for that. Folks, just give us a 1 in the Q&A if you've owned any one of those stocks. Just give us a 1. I want to just see in the Q&A. You can do it on LinkedIn, YouTube, wherever you're. Just go. Yeah. Okay. All right. So yeah, Ross says awesome stuff. Mark, Brandon, David, yeah, almost everybody's doing that. Okay, I'm going to launch a quick poll because Jeff, I think this will give us some nice context as to the advisors here. This is a fast one, guys. So just take your mouse right now. I'm going to launch this poll. Do you currently own Bitcoin? And this is anonymous, by the way. So we're not going to follow up with you and get you to buy Bitcoin or anything like that. But I think this is going to be really powerful for a group of hundreds of financial advisors and insurance advisors. Kudos to you, insurance advisors that recommend retirement strategies and are here, because to me that says a lot about you. All right, I'm going to close it down. I've got 70% of the vote. I'll close it down in 5 seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2, end poll. Okay, so I'll just share the results with you guys. If you're on Zoom, you can see it. You can see that, Jeff. 32% own. Good for you guys. 68% not yet, right? Or no.
That's great.
Yeah,
that's way more than I thought it would be. You guys are clearly on the leading edge. And then when we come in here and look at the orange, which is Bitcoin, is basically down here. You have, if you just put 95, this left dot. If you just put 95% of a portfolio into cash, 0% return, and then put 5% into Bitcoin, then what you end up with is a higher return on investment than Apple without all of Apple's risk, and almost as high of a percent of return on investment as Facebook. Remember, here you're taking 95% of your portfolio is no volatility. And then if you just talk about Bitcoin entirely, you have an annualized return on investment from 2012 forward. So that's already taking out the first 2 years of the biggest returns. But from 2012 forward, you're looking at 150% annualized return. So there's literally no other, so we know in investing, you got to take risk to get reward. There's literally no other investment where when you go to take risk, where for every percent of risk, you get as much reward as Bitcoin. And you can also measure this in a Sortino ratio or a Sharpe ratio, and Bitcoin is off the charts. So the first thing we have to understand is something special is going on here. Tulips would not show up this way on a chart. .com crash stocks of like pets.com would not show up. So it deserves the attention to understand this is the best performing asset on the planet and all of humanity on a risk adjusted basis. Now, we probably want to know, do we expect it to be that forward? My personal belief is yes. And so what we need to understand that's really big that's going on is Bitcoin is an alternative to the Federal Reserve. A lot of people criticize the Federal Reserve like with conspiracy theories and like they're like evil people or waiting for them to pull off their mask and they're really lizards or whatever. They're not like evil. I think that they're in an unwinnable position, right? So there's conflicting philosophies out there of centralization. So that's like the Soviet Union where they said, you know what, we want the government, we want to appoint some different czars, and they're going to control everything. They're going to tell people what the prices should be. They're going to tell people what the interest rate should be. They're going to tell the farmers how much to farm. They're going to tell the bakers how much to bake. And then they're going to try to just solve all the problems of the supply and demand for all things in the economy. And that didn't work. And then, classically, historically, the United States has been the hub of decentralization, also known as capitalism, where you have open competitive markets where there's no single person. The idea behind capitalism is that there's no single person that could somehow have, godlike omnipotence enough to know the correct answer to how much should the baker bake, how much should the farmer farm, what should interest rates be, and what should the money supply be. So historically, throughout most of America's history, what led to our number one position as in terms of wealth and prosperity and freedom is because we have had a decentralized society and economy. And then the Federal Reserve came along in 1913, and the dollar became a fiat currency in 1971 with Richard Nixon's executive order. That made the dollar and our banking system more like the Soviet Union and less like the United States of America. And so the Federal Reserve has an actual structural problem in that you could take the most honest person and the number one genius of the whole world. Like if you think Elon Musk is the number one genius, you could put Elon Musk at the head of the Federal Reserve, and even Elon Musk couldn't know the answer to how much money should there be, what should the interest rates be, and what should we do for the economy. Okay, centralization has never worked. And we're now heading into a time where centralization is unfortunately being doubled down on. So I don't think there's any evil conspiracy theories. I think the Federal Reserve has an unwinnable job. And as you can see, when we talk about money printing, which is the thing that causes fiat monies to fail, money printing exploded when COVID hit. It exploded so much that the Federal Reserve discontinued publishing its M1 statistic. In other words, for the entire existence, or at least for many decades, they've published, here's how much money we're printing with M1. Here's how much money we're printing with M2. In 2006, they stopped publishing M3, and it was kind of like, okay, well, we'll at least have the M1 and M2 figures. Now they just this year stopped publishing both at the exact time that the money supply turned into a hockey stick. So our world is changing because Bitcoin becomes an alternative to the Federal Reserve, and it will eventually flourish into a digital frontier nation state. It has a new technology of the way it's coded where it kind of has like an exoskeleton where the Bitcoin network itself is not susceptible to what any human wants to do. It's not susceptible to any physical actions. There's no door that can be kicked down to stop Bitcoin. There's no location that a bomb can be dropped to stop Bitcoin. It is the first digital nation state that has no physical exposure. And that means there's a whole set of transformations into the digital world that we're heading into that are going to create bigger change than almost everyone realizes. So, this creates a lot of freedom. This creates alternatives to things where there was previously no alternative. There's been a monopoly on money. There's been a monopoly on certain forms of governance. And this is actually good news for governments, in my opinion, because governments, just like the Federal Reserve, have a sort of unwinnable game, right? They've tried to win the game on like, we think you shouldn't wear masks. Oh, we think you should wear masks. We think you shouldn't get the vaccine. We think you should get the vaccine. We think, everything that the government does, it gets criticized. And they've lost the ability to unify the country. They've lost the ability to competently solve a lot of the problems. And it's really a structural problem, just like with the Federal Reserve. We actually need digitally native solutions to a digital world that we live in. Let's talk about Bitcoin price for a second, because on the front of on the tip of our tongues right now is probably like, how high could Bitcoin go? And the answer is there's no limit, because if we're thinking about how high Bitcoin could go, it's really a question of how low the dollar can go. And the dollar can go to zero, like most other fiat currencies have. So it's kind of a flawed question. But if we want to take a snapshot and think in terms of the dollar right now. If we take, April 8th, 2021 dollars and say how many of those dollars could become worth, the answer is potentially $1 to $5 million in today's dollars per Bitcoin. So the important thing there is there's a model called the stock to flow ratio. And that means that what we do is we say, okay, Bitcoin has a stock. That's the amount of Bitcoin that already exists. And it has a flow where the Bitcoin network itself prints new Bitcoin every 10 minutes. The question is, how much are they printing? And right now, Bitcoin is at an inflation rate of under 2%, while the dollar is at an inflation rate of something like 40% of all dollars that exist were printed in the last 12 months. So we've got a 40% inflation rate and the dilution that suggests, and then a 1% inflation rate and the value capturing capabilities that suggests. And we've got fiat money of a $100 trillion market, and then we've got Bitcoin as a $1 trillion market. So you kind of start to see where this is going. So when you look at the stock to flow ratio, you can look at this where there's a model put together by a data scientist that pseudonymously goes by the name Plan B on Twitter. And he published this in 2019, and it shows with 95% correlation and accuracy why the Bitcoin price is what it is historically. And it makes suggested predictions for the future based on this data that we have about how hard Bitcoin is. And the white line is basically that projection. So as you can see, this is a logarithmic chart. So by 2025, it's predicted that Bitcoin will be worth $1 million. This chart, interestingly enough, only projects based on the scarcity of the supply of Bitcoin. But we all know there's two things involved in pricing any asset. There's the supply, and of course, there's the demand. So just the supply scarcity of Bitcoin suggests $1 million valuation in about, say, 4 or 5 years. If demand is increasing, which it is, then we could view this as potentially even a sort of price floor. Now, I want to take a quick pause on the slides for a moment and address the question of if a Bitcoin is worth $1 million, how would we ever use it as a money? How do you buy, a tank of gas that is maybe $50 right now with a currency that's worth $1 million? Well, 1.0 Bitcoin was originally designed to be worth $1 million. And the transactable unit of Bitcoin is called a Satoshi or a sat. So when you start seeing people talk about sats, then you know that you're in an audience, a group, a community of people who actually know something about Bitcoin. When people talk about Bitcoins or just Bitcoin as a currency, that's sort of a pre-101 type of way of thinking about it. We want to think about Bitcoin as an asset class, as a global monetary network, and we want to think about sats as the actual currency. So there are 100 million sats in a Bitcoin. So you basically have a sat is 1 Bitcoin. So in other words, back when Bitcoin was invented, the creator of Bitcoin designed Bitcoin for 1 sat to become worth 1 penny. And the moment that 1 sat becomes worth 1 penny, 100 million sats or a whole Bitcoin is worth $1 million. So the real design of Bitcoin, which is now largely, so as you can see on a logarithmic scale, we are essentially, if Bitcoin is designed to go to $1 million, we're essentially 70% mission accomplished from the original vision of Bitcoin. And the next 30% takes Bitcoin from its current, say, 60,000, potentially to its original designed longer term value of $1 million. So we're essentially 70% proven, 70% de-risked, and the last 30% still turns every $60,000 invested into potentially $1 million. So Bitcoin was designed to become worth $1 million. I don't
Jeff,
know
I
if you
want
can
to jump
actually
in
see
with
what I was
something if
writing
I,
on here because the slides are probably taking up the screen.
no, it's all right. We can see. Hey, Jeff, I want to just show something to the audience here. So, I love your question about, when can I start buying? And we got a great question here. Like, look, Craig is asking, hey, this might be a simplistic or naive, but if I wanted to get some Bitcoin to pay for a Tesla, how would I do that? Like, that's a great question, right? And the fact that you as advisors are asking that question now means that your clients have already started figuring it out, or they're going to be looking to you for guidance. And I'm going to share the screen for just a quick second, Jeff. I want to pass it back to
Yeah,
you. But when I
sure.
saw this, okay, Visa's announcement to go to offer crypto solutions, when one of the biggest credit card processing entities in the world doesn't even have a call to action on their page to start using it, but they knew they had to get this up fast. And it was like, big things can happen when you combine crypto with the power of the world's largest payment networks. Visa made an announcement, I think it was last week or the week before, about how they're going to be looking for ways to integrate the crypto providers, the crypto wallets into Visa, meaning it would be as easy as using a Visa card to pay for something with Bitcoin. Like that's where we're at. You know what's fascinating to me, Jeff, is you and I study, you're students of marketing as you are students of economics and so forth. But when a site like this, by a company like that, has a weak call to action that says, contact us to learn more, we don't even have this yet, but we have to do something so that people don't think we're going to be behind. Like, you can't even sign up for this right now. They just want to be like, okay, guys, we got to figure this thing out. So when billion-dollar entities are looking at this, it's so exciting to be able to see, like, we are really ground floor. Like, we are truly still like ground floor for where we're at in the level of awareness. To me, nobody here has truly lost out. So I just wanted to share that because it was just really exciting when I saw it.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that for sure. I want to touch on some of the questions. I know we have what is it? It's over 70 of them. So I'm just going to take some of the more recent ones because I've said a lot of things. The things that I've said should be a little bit hard to grasp because what's happening is we have sort of like a map of the world and like kind of a mental program of understanding reality. And Bitcoin is actually changing that fundamental reality the same way the internet did, right? So like think how different the world is now to pre-internet. The world post Bitcoin is going to be even more different. So we have to be ready to recognize that people around us are going to have objections and skepticism, and it's all going to be basically just like attempts to grasp something that's difficult to grasp. And the people who don't take a closer look are going to miss out a lot. And you're here to take a closer look. So let's do that. Tom was saying the dollar was based on gold currency. What backs Bitcoin? So again, here, Bitcoin is like gold, right? So what backs gold? Well, gold is essentially backed first and foremost by its unforgeability and its scarcity. The fact that it was just kind of like a solid foundation on which to base, like, okay, here's like nobody has the ability to like add or subtract gold credits. So that's going to be the kind of honest base. And you're asking questions so fast that it's scrolling on my computer. So let me try to, okay, so what backs Bitcoin? Bitcoin backs Bitcoin. This is why it's hard to grasp right now, okay, is nothing backs gold. Gold has emergent properties that make it the number one money throughout American history and throughout civilized history. So Bitcoin has emergent properties. John says, I own a substantial amount of Grayscale. What's your opinion on it? Well, the number one thing that Bitcoin really provides is security without actually having to depend on any government or any CEO or any board of directors. And that security is native, built into the Bitcoin blockchain itself. And when you hold one Bitcoin, you have one Bitcoin. Grayscale is an instrument that somewhat correlates to the price of Bitcoin, but they have a wild additional volatility where sometimes it has a huge premium. You have to pay 30% extra without getting 30% more Bitcoin. And then sometimes that premium turns down into a discount. So you can actually have a period of time where Bitcoin has gone up by 20%, but your grayscale position has gone down by 10. So grayscale introduces additional risks with no additional reward. It's just more accessible for people who don't take the time to figure out how to get the real thing. So you're here, that means that you have the opportunity to get the real thing. I think that not taking an additional risk for no reward is a smart thing. So skipping past grayscale whenever possible is a smart thing to do. Okay, the questions just piled in because you guys knew I was answering some, but let's talk about a few of them. Gold has physical uses besides being a currency, manufacturing, electronics, jewelry, etc. What's the Bitcoin equivalent there? Well, if you look at gold's value, the vast majority of value comes from its monetary premium. So, if gold is worth, what is it right now? I can't remember. I don't look at it that much because I don't trade it. But let's say it's worth $1,800 an ounce, right? Out of that 1,800, only a few dollars of that value per ounce comes from its use in manufacturing and jewelry. So it is industrially useful, but almost all of its value comes from its monetary properties of people treating it as a reserve asset. So there's just a mental thing that people around the world do, including central banks. And the trend, my prediction, is that the people around the world, brains are going to retract that value from all these other different asset classes and put it onto Bitcoin as the world wises up to the things that you're learning today here on this webinar. So you're an early adopter by being here, even just an early adopter of the information, which brings me to this chart, okay? This is your diffusion of innovation from Rogers, also known as a bell curve. A lot of people think that we must be here because of how much it's grown, but we are here, where prior to 2021, we were not even to the early adopters yet. And the early majority are probably not coming for another 3 or 4 years. The late majority might be 2028, 2030 by my estimation. All right, so I obviously can't answer all the questions. So I'm going to try to pick some that I think might be the most useful.
This is great, guys. You guys are asking great questions, very thoughtful questions. Some like, hey, I'm just getting started, to pretty advanced. Like, I'm going to throw one out, Jeff. This comes from David, who's watching us live streaming on LinkedIn. Hey, David. He's saying, can you talk about the importance of cold storage versus opportunity costs to lend it out for, and then I don't know if it's HOOD, LRS. Do you know that? I don't know if that's
hodlers. Yeah. So, okay. So when you're holding Bitcoin, you can actually, you can hold your own Bitcoin in cold storage. That's where you're taking, total ownership of the Bitcoin and total responsibility. It's kind of like taking delivery of gold, right? So let's say you buy, say you buy one Bitcoin today for $57,000, and let's say it's going to become worth $1 million. That's like the equivalent of getting $1 million for the gold and putting it in your house. Now, cold storage provides an amount of, a level of security that's probably better than gold, but it still becomes a point of potential attack. If a hacker just hacks the information to know that you have a Bitcoin, which is totally doable. I mean, there's the information security of all the centralized servers is totally failed right now. So you can't really make it a secret that you own Bitcoin. And that means that as it becomes more and more valuable, you got to watch out for just using cold storage as just like a one and done solution. There are a lot of people that have technological experience and they're comfortable with cold storage, but they have no economic experience, where they really had no wealth before Bitcoin. And those people tend to think all you need to do is cold storage. I heavily disagree. I think that cold storage needs to be one piece of a multiple piece, comprehensive, sophisticated strategy so that you don't lose your Bitcoin. Now, you're also asking about, well, you could also, instead of store it yourself, you could place it somewhere where they lend it out and you earn an interest rate. My view on that is Bitcoin is less than 10% of its potential long-term future value. So why would you want to earn interest on only 10% of an asset's value? So maybe we want to earn interest, but let's do that when Bitcoin is already worth $1 million later. And by going and trying to earn interest on it, you're potentially going to lose all of the value. So let's say you put $60,000 Bitcoin to earn 6% interest. You're grabbing at $3,600 a year, and what you might lose is $1 million. So does that seem like good risk reward to potentially lose $1 million to try to get 3,600? My suggestion is no way, not at all. And then let's just step back here. This is the best performing, risk-adjusted return-wise, this is the best performing asset class of all time. Why would you need to risk losing that performance to try to juice it just a little bit more? You know, it's grown by 60 million%. Do you really need another 6%? Is it worth losing that, you know, additional 1,000%, 10,000%, whatever may potentially happen for 6? I think that's a pretty bad trade-off personally. So I discourage that. Jeremiah, you probably have a better look at the questions here. Why don't you
Sure.
take the reins?
By the way, great stuff, guys. So I'm going to pick one that really I'm seeing a lot, right? So Norman, I think you ask a nice, simple, straightforward question. What's the best platform to buy crypto on?
Yeah, this is a great question. So, you know, realistically, there's a lot of places to buy Bitcoin, and you're going to hear this word on-ramp. And so the places you can buy Bitcoin are usually the worst places to keep it, right? So usually you would buy from an exchange. An exchange is built for trading. So you can buy Bitcoin on an exchange, but then they're going to leave it in a centralized place where hackers can try to hack it. And all of the losses that you've ever heard about Bitcoin's history were not Bitcoin being hacked, but an exchange being hacked. So you want to think of exchanges as an on-ramp, you know, like you take an on-ramp in your car, but you're just not going to drive around in circles on the on-ramp and expect to get anywhere. You take the on-ramp so that you get somewhere else. The on-ramp could be, you know, like Coinbase, Kraken, Gemini. There are dozens of exchanges out there. They all have kind of their pros and cons. But an important thing that I'll suggest to you is that you never leave your Bitcoin on exchanges, because that's where you're most exposed to losing all of it, no matter how much it becomes worth later. If you've lost all of it, it's 100% loss.
Great question. Ross is saying, hey, we want Jeff to come back again. That's great.
Thank you.
Well, maybe we can make that happen. Let's see. And can you give a little bit of commentary? Kimberly is asking about the wallets, like all the different wallets that are out there. I think it's a nice segue from the last question about getting it off, the highway.
Yeah, I mean, so you essentially have you have a hot wallet, which is what you would have on most exchanges. Hot wallets mean that they're connected to the internet and you don't really have the security of Bitcoin. So hot wallets are the easiest thing for hackers to steal from. If you put Bitcoin on most iPhone apps, those are going to be hot wallets too. So then you have cold wallets, which is what I can't remember what the gentleman's name was, but he was asking about cold storage. Cold wallets are when you buy, you know what, I should have gotten it out so I can show you. But there's a bench, I don't know if you have yours handy, Jeremiah. Okay, great. So that's a cold wallet. That's a hardware wallet. The most recommended hardware wallet is called Trezor, Trezor, okay? And this is a device that you can plug into the USB port on your computer. And then you have cold storage. That means it's not connected to the internet. And it's a lot harder to hack. But then you also have the risk of how you can lose your keys. Your keys are a sort of different type of password. We don't have to get in deep into the tech right now. It's out of the scope of the talk today, but your keys are like an advanced password. And if you lose your keys, your Bitcoin's gone, because your keys are what's required in order to ever use or move or spend that Bitcoin. So then what you have is sort of a different approach, which is professional storage, where you might not have it in your own cold wallet, but you'll have a professional storage company that is not like an exchange focused on making it available for trading, but they take care of the security, and they'll often have insurance coverage. And so what ends up happening is, my belief is, everybody needs to develop a strategy that is adapted to them that involves all three of these things. You're going to need a hot wallet, a cold wallet, and professional storage, because the hot wallet is what you need to initially acquire the Bitcoin through the on-ramp. The cold wallet is where you need to strategically choose a portion of the Bitcoin to hold there, and the professional storage is where you strategically need to choose the amount of Bitcoin that you want to be covered by insurance against loss. So that's just kind of a little introduction to the strategy that I help people with.
So Jeff, we've got just a few minutes left here, and you've been really generous with your time. Folks, how many of you would love to be able to work with Jeff on an ongoing basis, where if you've got a question, how, Coinbase or Bitcoin, or, that's, Michael, you're asking that, right? Since we can't have possession of a Roth account, will we use the storage? Is this the same for altcoins, says Dog? Give me a yes. I want to kind of get a pulse here of, just give me a yes if you'd love to be working with Jeff a little more closely here. Okay, I'm in. Van, yes. Justin, Ross, David, yeah. Okay, perfect. So here's what we're going to do. My commitment to the industry has always been to help advisors thrive. As the CEO of Advisorist and as the founder, our big mission is to help 10,000 advisors double their business and get back 100 days a year, so you can truly live the life you got into this business to get. Jeff already has that. To work with Jeff, you need $1 million of assets minimum, or he's not working with you. But you can already tell that in 1 hour spent with Jeff, don't you feel like you've just learned more about Bitcoin in a thoughtful way? And not only that, but world economics and where the economy is going than maybe you have in the past 6 months. I know that's how I feel. Every time I get with Jeff, I feel like, hey, I just became the smartest guy in the room because I'm associating with the smartest guy in the room. So I always appreciate masterminding with him and chatting. Jeff and I are doing something really special. This is something, by the way, that Jeff does not do. But because we have a tribe of advisors that I believe are at the bleeding edge of everything going on. And on behalf of the industry, I think you guys deserve an apology, because nobody is stepping up to show you how to do this properly. And so one of our, what we feel we're best in the world at is bringing you guys ideas that no one else is talking about. That's not just marketing strategies. It's not just appointment strategies. It's also positioning strategies. So as investors yourselves, right, you guys have all these questions, and people are coming to you, or will be very soon, asking, okay, well, what about this, Laura? What about this, Alejandro? What about this, Bill? What about this, Wayne? You don't want to be caught behind. The other thing is, we can't wait anymore. Jeff, you first came on the Power Hour. Remember, we used to have them at night at 8 o'clock at night. And you were like, dude, 8 o'clock at night. But we had like 300 advisors show up at 8 o'clock at night to hear you. And I just looked up on Yahoo Finance, the price of Bitcoin the night you showed up was $36,000. Today, on April the 8th, the price is $58,000. So people who listened to you there made a $20,000 gain. So here's what we're going to do. Jeff and I are opening up a very exclusive crypto mastermind designed for insurance and financial advisors. You have to have a license to do this, okay? Just because of compliance, Jeff, you've got an RIA, and because of compliance, you can't be teaching this to just, investors. Do you want to just comment on that?
Yeah. So, this is, there's a certain amount of sophistication you have around finances when you're a professional advisor. And so what we're talking about is a group that is made up exclusively of professional advisors. And that really allows us to roll up our sleeves and dig in at a higher, more advanced level that I think is going to get you to hit the ground running faster than kind of a retail investor off the street would.
Yeah. So thank you for that. So what we're going to do is we're opening up the doors today to a 90-day crypto mastermind. And the goal of that mastermind is to work with Jeff and his team to help educate yourself on all those ways that are on the back there, how to buy your own Bitcoin, how to set it up, literally walk through of everything from Treasure to Coinbase to how it all works together, gold as an asset class, silver as an asset class, how to kind of make sure that your financial house is in order and you're doing it in a safe way. I got to tell you, I would have never gotten into it had it not been for Jeff teaching me and my wife how to do it properly. So we feel totally secure with this, right? We're not playing around on any of the things you guys are talking about, because I'm just doing what Jeff's telling me to do, to be honest. I mean, and the benefits have been absolutely unreal. So here's what it looks like. For 90 days, Jeff is going to get on live just like this and do bi-weekly calls. I'm going to be there as well as your advocate, as your champion, to ensure you guys all get your questions answered and put it in a context of positioning yourself as an advisor. You should know that Jeff is a financial advisor. He's an RIA. He's licensed in 18 states. He has his own fund, but it's not about, we're not asking you to bring your clients to Jeff. I see one of your questions there. Thank you for that. We're not asking, it's not about, you don't need to be an accredited investor today or any of that. It's really self-education and being able to go out into the world. And even if it's just for yourself and your family, say, you know what, we got this Bitcoin thing down. The other thing is going to be a private forum. One of the things that is so valuable is every day to be able to ask private questions in a confidential setting that's private with Jeff, myself, and the team, helping you as you go through this journey. So you see something that worries you, that scares you, you saw an announcement, you're not sure what to make of it, put it in the forum, right? Technical analysis. Jeff, can you just talk for a moment about, like you today, I love when you bring up the charts and we go through the candlesticks, but there's something you're going to help our clients get access to that you really have to be playing at a whole new level. You want to just talk about the different institutional grade resources that people have access to?
Sure. Yeah. And so in addition to the RIA, I also founded one of the first cryptocurrency hedge funds in 2017. And I've invested alongside in new blockchain projects and technologies alongside the top venture capitalists in the world. I regularly talk with CEOs of the companies that you guys are all asking about here in the chat. And there's a whole collection of sort of institutional grade resources that we use at my firms to conduct the research that really gives us an advantage in the marketplace. And the normal ways that you would go about like conducting your analysis, sometimes they just don't work. Like it just doesn't translate over to stocks. You can always split stocks. You can always dilute stocks. Tesla is great. Been a great investment. But they can also go sell more shares into the market, so they can dilute as well. So a lot of that doesn't translate over into Bitcoin. Additionally, Bitcoin has all of its data publicly available in the blockchain. Now, it really literally just looks like ones and zeros if you don't know what to look for. But we have ways to parse that data and harvest insights out of it. So for example, the actual stock to flow ratio and the inflation rate of Bitcoin gets cut in half every 4 years. So I'm going to share my screen again to just give you one example of a picture being worth 1,000 words or maybe $10 million, depending on what you do with it. And this is looking, so that every 4 years, when the inflation rate of Bitcoin gets cut in half. So essentially, the inflation rate of Bitcoin is going to get cut in half every year until the year 2140, when all of us are long gone. This means it's getting more and more scarce, and that's a pressure that suggests higher and higher value. So far, we've had 3 halvings. The third halving happened on around May 12th, 2020. So what happens is it creates a supply shock. And then after the supply shock, we enter into a new epoch of a Bitcoin bull market. And then the Bitcoin bull market happens, and then eventually you get these parabolic growths that kick things off into a high level. If things go crazy, everyone goes, finally I'll stop doing this. The last time this happened was in December of 2017 here at this green line. What you can see is the halving happens, the supply shock pushes the price up, it goes into a bubble, the bubble pops, and then it lands much higher than the previous epoch. So in the first one, that took Bitcoin from $0 to about $30, and then it settled back down to about 12. Then it started from 12. From that point, it went up to about $1,100, and then it settled back down to about 750. Then it went from 750 and went up to about 20,000, and then settled back down at about 8,000 or so. Each color shows us the movements on a logarithmic percentage basis of each epoch. We're here on the purple line right here. So this is why what, a mentor told me many years ago, a drowning person can't save another drowning person. Somebody needs to extend their hand to save the drowning person from solid ground, from a boat or from land. And right now the market is drowning in misconceptions. There's a lot of valid questions in the chats that are misconceptions. Things like, well, shouldn't we look at the altcoins? Aren't the altcoins growing more? No, they're not. Hasn't the Bitcoin ship sailed, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. This is the number one misconception. And, a person drowning that misconception, which is basically the other people you've probably been hearing from, can't save you from that misconception. And that really has to do with another critical element. That's the reason why when Jeremiah went to convince me to do this with you guys, why I ultimately became convinced. And that's because of these three circles. This circle in the middle represents what you know. And in a normal subject, it might be a little bit bigger, but with Bitcoin, it's very small because we're so early. This is like being on the internet before there was a web browser. So how many people here were on the internet in like 1989? No, right? So we're like at that moment with Bitcoin. The second circle represents what you don't know. This is the range, this is a zone where you can ask questions. So we have 126 questions coming from this zone. Every time you go on Google and you type a search, you're only able to operate from this zone. You're asking Google a question that you don't know, and you're trying to find the answer. You're trying to expand your small inner circle of what you know by asking questions about what you don't know. The big problem with Bitcoin is the big circle. This is your zone of danger. And that's what you don't know. That's when you don't even know the question to ask in order to get the answer to make the next step intelligently, where you manage your risks and capture your opportunities. So this zone of danger, so you've got your zone of competence, you've got your zone of inquiry, and then you've got your danger zone. The danger zone with Bitcoin is bigger than any other thing that you could do personally or professionally in your life. Unless you're trying to, this is essentially like if you're on a plane and you're not a pilot and the pilot dies and you have to go try to land the plane. That's dangerous. That's where everybody is with Bitcoin. And I think one of the biggest things that's going to happen with this group that we're putting together is we're going to expand your zone of competence and knowledge. And then you're going to ask questions you wouldn't even know to ask. You're going to hear other people ask questions that you didn't know to ask. And we're slowly but surely going to make these inner circles bigger. And the bigger they can get, the less a chance you're going to end up making some sort of mistake that costs you everything. And I think the biggest financial mistakes for the next decade will be people who lose all of their Bitcoin. Even if that just means a quarter of one Bitcoin. That represents financial freedom for some people in the world. And if they lose it, they'll lose their financial freedom. So I just wanted to touch on that. You were talking about charts, Jeremiah. There's no halvings or epochs with stocks or bonds or cash. So we have all of this on-chain data that we can scrape and ultimately have way more insight and intelligence than we've ever been able to have with any other asset class. And boy, are we lucky that that's combined with the best performing asset class known to man.
Thank you for that. And, so being able to get access to that and start to expand your view. And I love, Justin, what you said, right? We know what we know what you don't know what you don't know. Exactly right. And that's the concentric circle. So our goal today in the Crypto Mastermind that some of you will be joining us here in just a moment is most of you, based on the questions I can tell, and I was there a year ago with you. The questions you're asking, those are the questions I was asking. Like, I felt sheepish. I felt shy. I'm like, I don't want to look dumb, but then I got over myself and I'm like, all right, well, I got to go to the guy who knows. And then moving from that first circle to the second circle to now being in the third circle is amazing. And now being able to profit from the growth of Bitcoin has just been extraordinary. So here's what we're doing. We're putting this together. We're not going to make a big deal. We don't have slides. It's not a value stack because, to be honest, guys, where Bitcoin is going, the fear of missing out, the FOMO, should be coming from you guys realizing. There's somebody made a comment here. that you heard about this a year ago, you didn't jump on. You heard about it 6 months ago, you didn't jump on. You're hearing about it today and you're wondering, should I jump on? So we want to help everybody rise up. We know this is not for all of you. You know, if you got what you just came for today, great, we appreciate you. But if you're still here right now and you're watching the screen, you're listening to my voice, we want to invite you to join the mastermind. As I stated earlier, to work with Jeff and to be able to ask him questions like this anytime, you need $1 million. Now, I'm not quite that expensive because you don't need assets to work with us and our team. But if you want me to consult you on this strategy of your practice, we take people who are at $10,000, $20,000 a month, and we take them to $50, $60, $70, $100,000 a month in their practices. It's like $20,000 to work with me monthly if you want to do that. What Jeff said, Jeff and I, to be honest, we debated this up until 5 minutes prior to this. And one of the reasons we were late is we were like, how should we price this? Because to be honest, you know, the information is going to be invaluable. You could end up coming and learning one thing and you put yourself on a path to success with crypto, not just Bitcoin, but what about ETH? What about the other places, right? The other cryptos that are out there. So what we said, let's do this. We're doing this. It's the first time we're doing this. So here's what we're going to do. Originally, we're going to do this as a 5K program for 90 days. We said, you know what, if you don't have 5K, you're not serious. And then, you know, Tisha and I, our chief revenue officer, said, but here's the thing. I know there's people out there who maybe, you know, they don't have that much to even invest. And if you come to this program, we want you to take some of your money and we're going to show you ways that you can invest it in crypto for yourself. We're not going to invest it for you. This is not a fund. We're not asking you to bring your money. This is a knowledge program with self-paced learning and live interaction. So you're going to, all those questions about setting up crypto and where do I go, you're going to actually, Jeff is going to be putting into this program a $5,000 course just by itself that walks you through the whole thing. And guess what? When you have questions, you can ask him and his team every single day, Monday through Friday, in a private members area, which you'll get access to. So that's being given to you just as a gift because we, you know, I asked Jeff, you know what, we're going to need to help these guys because they're going to be needing step by step from zero, I know nothing, to I want to succeed. And that's what we put together for you. So the bi-weekly calls, the course on how to get started, a private forum. Jeff will be doing technical analysis and sharing you the institutional grade resources and the insights that he gets from this. When updates happen, as they happen, Jeff will be commenting, and we're going to do this for 90 days. And we're not doing this at 5K or 4 or 3, it's just 2K. If you want in and you want to play with Jeff and I for the next 90 days and you want to expand that circle, it's just 2K. So here's, if you're in, I'm actually going to choose somebody and I'm going to give away this treasure as a gift for like, I'm going to pick somebody at random who joins today. Just because it's fun and it's cool. When I bought it, I bought 3 of them. So I'm going to send this one. It's going to come from my house. It's going to go to you. I'm going to send somebody here just as a cool gift to somebody. But if you're in, put the words you're in. I'm going to drop the link in the chat today. And you're just going to hop over here. I'll share my screen. And then if you guys have questions about it, what it's going to look like and so forth, great. If you're on LinkedIn right now, I'm going to drop that for you in a comment that I just put. It's secure.advisorist.com/crypto. I love how actually that rolls off the tongue. Secure. Like this is so fresh, guys. We don't even have a fancy domain for it. It's not like cryptomastermind.com. It's literally one of our new products, and you're going to be in there. And you know, as you guys know, I always love to give bonuses. We love to do extra things for our members, and this is going to be the same thing with this. We're not going to tell you some of the stuff we're working on. But the bottom line is if you don't see the vision of where, you know, crypto is going as an asset class, you're not convinced, then do not join this. If you're someone who's just going to come in and, you know, like troll and stuff like that, do not join. This is for people who have an open mind, who are ready to learn. You're going to get a combination of a self-paced study. You're going to go to this page. Here's how the page works. It's very simple. You're going to put your first name, your last name, your email, your business, your phone number, agree to the terms. And by the way, and this morning, I had we do our sprint planning at 7:30 in the morning. When I got on my meeting with Tisha this morning, I was like, Tisha, I was thinking all night about these guys. How can we make it like such a no-brainer that even somebody who is a new investor, like I know a lot of you, I've been on the phone with some of you this week, you know, you're getting started and you're trying to figure out, what do I do with my own investments? Because let's be honest, you don't want to be sitting in front of people feeling like a fraud, that they're coming to you for financial advice and you have no idea how to buy a single Bitcoin. You have no idea where crypto is going. You have no idea where it relates to other asset classes. Like, that would be a rough place to be in. And I don't want anybody like that. So if you need to split this up into 3 payments, we're going to do that for you. You just choose the 3 pay and just put in your credit card and you're in. All right. And I'm going to pick somebody end of the day today. I'm going to send out a treasure to you because you're a treasure, right? That's corny. That's a dad joke for Thursday. But I just wanted to say thank you guys. I really appreciate all of you. And frankly, Jeff and I could have easily do this as a 5 or 10K program. And, a lot of you would jump in because just to work with Jeff is a real privilege. Like I said earlier. So with that said, if you guys are in, good. We guys see a lot of you starting to come in. Awesome. Beautiful. We got Lauren, Janice, Norman, Jamie, Nora, David. Beautiful. Ken, great question. Do you have to be an RIA to participate? No, you don't. This is for insurance and financial advisors. So no matter what, as long as you're licensed, because of the rules and regulations, because you're licensed, we're going to teach you how to profit and invest yourself. Okay, we're going to teach you how to do that, but you do not need to be an RIA. You don't need anybody in your office to be an RIA. But so glad to see all you guys coming in. Excellent. Cynthia, glad to have you. Blake, Brandon, you're going to crush it with this. David, Bill, excellent. Good job. Nora's in. Craig says, I think I'm in the small circle. Craig, you're saying the PayPal link isn't working. So just click on here, and then when you do complete order, it may ask you to log in. And if you guys are having tech issues, let me just drop our email address here, and we will help you guys out. Yeah, Jeff, anything you want to add about the mastermind? Because I know you mastermind with people who are investing at really high levels. Why is it important to have somebody guide you, through this process?
Yeah, it's this is a nascent asset class, so it's brand new. So it really just kind of goes back to that third circle, right? So like, to clarify, we're not in one of the circles. We all exist in all of the circles, and it's really the danger is that to get to the point where so first off, Bitcoin's so new, not even the creators of it, whoever they are, know everything about it. Right. So it's because it's a global monetary system that's never existed before, and it runs itself. So there's nobody that has no danger zone or no unknown unknowns. But when we all start out with primarily what there is about Bitcoin is mostly something that you can't possibly know. And what this means is no matter how pure your intentions are, no matter how closely you focus on every step that you make, no matter how much you do tons and tons of research, you're still only going to be operating from within the first 2 circles, the things you know and the things you know to ask about. You can't research the big circle. Only mentorship can provide protection against the danger zone. And that, I think, is really crucial. I mean, I've seen things in the chat like, is it still going to be going on in a year? Maybe, but is it okay if I share my screen once more, Jeremiah?
Yep, go ahead.
Maybe, but if we do a year from now, if we look at this pattern, the pattern suggests a year from now that you're going to be, potentially at the peak of this bubble, where it will go into an actual temporary bubble, potentially at say $400,000-$500,000, and that's the price that a Bitcoin you will buy in. So it's very important to understand that we're dealing with something that's uncontrollable. We can't make Bitcoin wait for you. This is like there's a train at the station, and the train is leaving the station, and there's literally, nobody controls Bitcoin. So there's no engineer or there's no president of the train company that you can call and say, hey, I got a couple of things going on. Could you please hold the train? They literally just don't exist. This is a new type of computer program. It's like a Federal Reserve that runs itself. It can't vary from its path, and there's nobody that can stop it. So with that being said, the train is leaving the station in terms of where the price goes, and nobody knows where it will go short term. But I highly, highly doubt that 1 year from today, Bitcoin will be under 100,000. I strongly doubt that it will be under 200,000. So the real, when we go out there and we make decisions on what to do with things, we're always used to, like, in an offer like this, people like me and Jeremiah being able to, make decisions about when you can do what. But Jeremiah and I cannot control what's going on with the Bitcoin price. So I wouldn't obsess too much about price, but I also, in terms of like finding your entry point, just understand that the longer you wait, the odds become more and more out of your favor, that the opportunity in terms of the price points are going to wait for you. I also saw a lot of things about retirement accounts. Can you do this with a retirement account? Someone was saying something about, I know if I had a Roth IRA, I wouldn't be able to hold it myself. Actually, you can. There are specialized structures. Actually, we've been setting them up for 18 years at my firm Nabers Group. And you can do this in retirement accounts. You can do this in retirement accounts in which you possess the actual Bitcoin. You can do this in retirement accounts where you don't have to let the keys be held by, a Fidelity or whoever. And so there's a lot here for us to mastermind about. We've barely just scratched the surface. And every single step of the way, every few minutes, every hour that you put into this inner circle grows. And the more that it grows and the less kind of this space is taken up by the outer circle, the safer you are, and the more the wealthier and more prosperous you are by taking advantage of the opportunity. So what we want to do is we want to empower you so that if a year from now we weren't offering this, you would be 10 years ahead of your peers instead of right alongside them. Your family would be 10 years ahead of where you would otherwise be with your wealth strategy because of the time that you spent in the mastermind. So time marches on forward, and I think that we're right here in the middle of a raging bull market with Bitcoin, and I just want to really make sure that we understand that this isn't like a normal offer. Nobody can hold this opportunity for you. Nobody can stop the Bitcoin network.
Yeah, I want to address something because Kelly, you bring up such a great point. You're like, hey, why don't I just take my money and put it into crypto instead? That is such a great question. And actually, we thought about that because we were thinking, hey, what if somebody just goes and does that? So a couple of things on that. A, you can absolutely do it, right? No problem. I'll tell you about my experience. When I started learning and started researching, I had no idea about cold storage versus hard storage versus
Hot
treasures
wallets
versus on ramps, off ramps, and I could have lost a whole bunch of money. There's a hot wallet on the App Store that ended up stealing everybody's Bitcoin. If you use the wrong place, you could lose out. So you're definitely welcome to do that. The other thing is this, right? And you guys ever watch Bruce Lee movies? Okay, how many of you can do the moves Bruce Lee does? You can watch as many YouTube videos and you could rewatch Enter the Dragon as much as you want. You're never going to become Bruce Lee, right? Because you need coaching and you need the training. And that's what the mastermind is all about. Like, there is something within the next 90 days. Do you think there's going to be something that comes up that's going to make people be fearful of crypto, or something's going to happen about crypto, or you're going to get a question about crypto, even if you walk away from this and you don't decide to join us? Of course something's going to happen. It's like almost every day, right? Well, what if you could get perspective on that? What if, you could get a level-headed perspective from a guy like Jeff, who doesn't make decisions emotionally, but who has access to the research, the history, a client fund that he's analyzing every single day, and be able to share that information with you. Like, I'm not going to over hype this opportunity, because if you see it, in my mind, I know you guys see it. And I want to just say congratulations to all of you that caught the vision. Just the other thing too, we will never offer this again at this rate. Okay, this is it. Like, if you don't come in today and at 2K, you're not going to see that again at that price. That's literally the lowest we want to go, because people who pay attention. And if we were to do this at $100 a month or whatever, some places, they think that there's going to be a huge value in that, but you're not going to use it. But there has to be enough of a bar here where we want to work with serious people, because there's going to be a future behind this, right? The other thing too I want to address is what happened to taxis and Blockbuster. One of our friends here in LinkedIn commented on that, with Uber and Netflix. We're way ahead. Advisorist and the advisors who work with us are way ahead of the game. Like, I'm the only one in the industry. Why am I the only one in the industry that saw Jeff and brought him to you at the beginning of the year? Like, why You should be asking yourself that question. Why haven't your RIAs, why haven't your broker dealers, why haven't your FMOs brought you this level of knowledge from a guy like this, right? Like you got to be asking yourself that question. At Advisorist, our mission is to help you get to the bleeding edge. And we believe that you are a critical part of the process to help people make these decisions. So I'm doing my job here to say, guys, this is the best it's ever going to get if you want to get access to this kind of knowledge. Otherwise, go to enjoy the YouTube fandom where every guy is just watching the other guy's YouTube video and trying to rank it for keywords. And they're not going to help you. You think you're going to get advice by chatting in YouTube chatter and asking questions? That's not going to happen. So that's
and by the way, sometimes people do, and then they steal your Bitcoin by saying, here's how you do it. And then they ultimately say, okay, you send it to this address and then it'll be secure. And then they just take your Bitcoin. So that's kind of another element here. And one of the reasons, why I think licensed professionals really stand to be able to provide that level of comfort that they're not just going to disappear, with your Bitcoin. Of course, we have my hedge fund and my RIA, and I'm not some Johnny come lately like most of the people that you're talking about on YouTube.
Yeah, and that's what's unique, right? Like Jeff, you are an RA, you have a firm, you're doing this, and it's not like you're just an analyst on Bitcoin or crypto or ETH or DeFi or the blockchain. Like you're doing this every single day. This is where you guys could be, where Jeff is going. And just a couple questions. Jacob's asking, what are we going to go over in the masterclass? So this is a mastermind. So to be clear, within about 48 hours, or actually almost initially, Tisha, you can comment in Slack on that, is we've got, Letitia's telling me, she's like, I actually want to change the value on this page because I feel like the value is actually $10,000, and she's laughing, but she's leaving it here. So when you're going to log into the Advisorist membership, so those of you that are already part of our other programs, Surge, APA, Shift, Scale, and Six, you're going to see it as a new program. You're just going to look for that icon, Crypto Mastermind. Jeff has a 12 video course that's already in there loaded for you to start walking you through how to buy crypto, how to understand it, where it relates to other asset classes. By the end of going through that, you'll have the full confidence and the click by click. It's literally Jeff. Well, Jeff, why don't you just tell them what are they getting in that program?
Yeah, it's really like looking over my shoulder, showing you how to actually take the steps. And, as I was saying before, we have those different ways, these different options of how to do things. This isn't like okay, here's my options. Which one do I do? And then hope it's the best. Well, just like you wouldn't say like, oh, I want to build a car. Do I need an engine or a transmission or a wheel? Like, no, you need all of those things. There's multiple ingredients here. And so I walk you through how and when to use the on-ramp, how and when to use the hot wallet, how and when to use the cold wallet, how and when to use pro storage, what the different strategies are for finding your entry points, putting it all in at what point versus like scaling in, doing dollar cost averaging. And really ultimately the big thing, there's actually a question earlier on, and I do have a hard stop here in a minute or two. There was a question earlier on saying, but wasn't gold confiscated from Executive Order 6102 in 1933? And for a lot of people, they think this is like conspiracy theory realm. No, it's actually just history book stuff. In the Great Depression, when there was great change happening in the financial system and in the markets, they did order people to turn in their gold because that was a moment where the crisis that involved the dollar at the time was leading to all of a sudden governments needing to take the gold to try to shore up the financial system. Actually, there were strategies that many Americans took during that time to, without breaking any laws, protect their gold. And this is very little known, but it's incredibly valuable. This is actually a potential thing that we need to be thinking about. Okay, how you're storing things, where you're storing things. You have to understand the financial crisis that we saw in COVID, the great change. We're in the middle of it still. We're still in the middle of it. We're still in the middle of the conflict of East versus West, of America versus China. And in all of this, the highest performing asset class that becomes one of the main asset classes worth tens of trillions of dollars, in my expectation, is going to be highly targeted from all sorts of predation. It's gonna be all sorts of predatory organizations and groups and people that are going to try to separate you from Bitcoin in various ways. And so the most important thing that you can possibly do financially this decade is to get and secure your Bitcoin. So securing your Bitcoin is a multi-part strategy. And we just want to keep you focused. You know, the sirens on the shore that want to steer you into the rocks are going to try to get you to take the best performing asset class and try to juice the returns more with the interest rate or with altcoins or all of that kind of stuff. And there are other complements to Bitcoin that you need to do with other coins, but there's an order of importance, just like there's an order of operation in mathematics, or it doesn't work, right? There's an order of importance, and we put you through that sequence so this really just becomes actionable. You wouldn't really come across the full strategy that's in that 12 video course that kickstarts with, you know, which has been sold for $5,000 every time we've offered it before. You wouldn't really come across that, like putting that strategy yourself together without the 7 years of actually doing things the right way and figuring out what the wrong way is the hard way, the same way that I did. So I've been actually working with Bitcoin, owning Bitcoin, working with wallets and on-ramps since April of, in fact, we're almost at my exact 8-year Bitcoin birthday. So you're at your, you know, 0 to maybe 1 or 2-year Bitcoin birthday. And the whole idea here is let's just accelerate you to get right up next to me in terms of being ahead of the curve. And I think the most exciting thing, a point that for I think my contribution today that I'll have to end with is, if it's okay, I'll just go back to my screen one more time. Is that okay,
Yep,
Jeremiah?
yep.
Just this, okay, this is important to understand. Okay, all the questions that you have. So like we're looking at this as society. Now, everyone, whether they start getting Bitcoin in 2021 or 2026 or 2013, they all go through their own learning curve. So this is basically designed. So like the questions that you ask today are going to be the same questions that people are asking in 2024. Now, some things will change and evolve in the crypto space, but the core questions, the core misconceptions, everybody has those in their first couple of years with Bitcoin and crypto, whether they start in 2013 or 2023. So the important thing to do is accelerate, shorten that learning curve, accelerate that learning process so that you expand your zone of competence and knowledge, and you're able to move forward with confidence and competence, knowing that you're not ready fire aiming with what might be the most important financial transactions you do in your entire life for your future and your family's future, but that you're ready aiming firing without delaying your implementation by years to do so.
Jeff, thank you. I know you got a hard stop. You got to hop off. There's a few last minute questions. I'll stick around to help you guys and talk about the logistics of what you're going to get access to. But Jeff, thank you so much for being here. We're going to be together again, possibly next week, I think is going to be call number 1 or the week after. So we're looking. So for those of you guys that are in, this is not the last time you'll ever be seeing Jeff. So Jeff, thanks so much.
All right, I'm looking forward to it. And Jeremiah, thank you for everything that you do for advisors and everybody here. Thanks so much for investing your only unreplenishable asset of your time today. Hopefully it was well worth it, and hope to see some of you soon. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff. All right, so I'm going to stick around and answer a few more questions. Some of you are having tech issues, you're trying to get in. So let me just answer a couple of quick ones coming in. Is this the, like, when is this offer open till? The offer at this price is today only. And we're doing it just as a way, because if you guys get the vision, I'm going to give you guys an insight to my analytics here, okay? So here's the thing. We got like 26,000 advisors who subscribe to our newsletter. Whenever we do a webinar like this, you know, maybe 500-600 people will, you know, show up. Today we had half that amount. Now, do you know why I'm excited about that? Because if you guys showed up, that means that your competitors, the other advisors that are on our list, they don't get this. Like me, I want to be where nobody's going, right? Like I go where the puck is going. Wayne Gretzky, great quote. Also great Canadian. Thanks, Canadian. And as a Canadian, I wanted to say that. And I get excited when I see no one else is talking about something. Like that juices me up, guys. And if you guys are as fired up as I am to see that we're on the bleeding edge of this thing. Like a year from now, BDs and FMOs are going to finally get their docs together and be like, big announcement, everybody. We can now take and invest with crypto, but they got to have at least 10 million. Or, I mean, isn't that what Morgan Stanley just did? Hey, we got a new asset class crypto, but you need 10 million. And, you know, and you're going to be like, guys, you know, I'm working with people who have $500,000, $1 million bucks. What are you going to do for them? So let them sort it out in the meantime, and that they're fine for what they do, right? Their trainers watch our power hours and then take our ideas back to them and then try to implement them. I mean, that's what's going on in the space right now. FMOs, IMOs, GAs, MGAs. I see who's coming on. Okay. So, and there's some on this call, right? So, you know, I love you guys, but you got to get it together and you got to help these guys. So this is what I'm doing to help you. So I'm really excited for you guys. Let's see. Jamie, awesome. Appreciate you, man. Kimberly says exactly. Yeah, thanks. Thank you. Good. Van, I'm in for the crypto class. Awesome. Make sure you guys get this. So here's what's going to happen next, right? Awesome. David, I just saw you come in. Rockstar. By the end of the day today, you're going to get your login. So don't worry about it. You're going to get your, you know, as long as you get your invoice and your receipt, you're in. Okay. At the end of the day today, give Tisha some time. She's still setting some stuff up. That's going to be sent out to you guys with the login that has the 12 steps. So you can start right away. And in our, as you know and love about Advisorist, you can ask questions in the members area. So you're just going to use the little chat bubble. You're going to ask questions. Okay. And then we're going to send you an update shortly on the times of the calls, which are live. And then we're going to be working on some other cool things where Jeff is going to be updating you guys as he's seeing stuff. So we're not, this is not just you being, you know, proactive only and us being reactive. We're going to be proactively telling you, watch this stuff, look for this. And I can't wait to see, like, I believe there's going to be Bitcoin and crypto millionaires that are on this call today that have $1,000. That's it. You can buy $1,000, $100 of Bitcoin today, right? You're buying a part of a Bitcoin, or a sat is what we call it, right? You can put $100 into Bitcoin. And it's just amazing. I'm so excited, guys, where this is going. George, great question. Would we be investing through Jeff's organization or Advisors, or are we being offered guidance only? Guidance only. We're not asking for your money. You're not going to move assets over. It's simply you're enrolling into a mastermind with one of the, in my opinion, the top minds on crypto in the financial services industry. That's what you're rolling into. What you do with your funds is all on you. Okay, George, I hope that you know, answers your question there, my friend. All right, which treasure do I use? This is a Model T. So you can see there, this is the Model T, but I will give you guys a warning. Do not buy this. Do not buy any wallet with a credit card. Companies that sell, guess why? Companies that sell wallets are targeted by hackers. There's stories of wallet companies where hackers target people who buy these, because then they guess what? They know that that person has Bitcoin at their house. They sell that, and there's been accounts where there's been break-in into homes where people used your credit card information that was gotten off of a wallet site to find out where you live, break into your house, and steal your wallets. The reason I don't have a problem with this is because I never bought mine with a credit card. You're going to find out how to do it inside the class so that you don't put your address at risk. Please, if you do not put your credit card information in anything related to buying a crypto wallet, you are just asking for hackers to target you. Okay, let's see, Doug, awesome, Doug. I'm looking forward to making a difference for my own education and bringing it to our clients. Our competition isn't discussing it. This may just separate us from the other. Doug, you are thinking exactly how I'm thinking, because one of the things we're going to do in the future with the people in this group is we're going to and this is going to be an evolution, guys. I'm doing this in real time. As you can see, there's no big offer stack. It's not bonus after bonus. This is like, hey, let's just get started, and we're going to work with you as you go. But as you guys start telling us what you're hearing in the field, what we're going to do is we're going to put together something new for those that really want to differentiate themselves and go after your competitors' clients, because you're going to be the advisor who can talk about crypto. Like just know that, like in the next week, you'll be able to send a newsletter out to your clients and say, hey, I just went through a unique experience in buying crypto. If you have any questions about it, I'd love to share what I know. Email me back. What? Right? I mean, how powerful would that be to be able to start positioning it? I promise you, your competitors aren't doing that. So yeah, totally sad about that, Janice. Absolutely. Could I put the sign up link? Yeah. So I'm going to put the sign up link again, guys. It's right here. It's secure.advisorist.com/crypto, but I'll put it in the chat. Should be there. I put it twice by accident, but Charlie, I'll also type it for you. So go ahead and do that, because once I close this down, we're closing it down. David, why did I say there's $1 million of investable assets minimum? No, what I said was, if you're an accredited investor and you want to move $1 million and have Jeff work with you, you need to have $1 million. Or you want Jeff to work with you and invest your money, you need $1 million. That's what I mean. So Jeff doesn't answer questions, like this for anybody other than people who have $1 million in his private fund. Okay. So while I can call Jeff anytime I want and email him and text him and do all that stuff, only if you have $1 million in investment, you can do that. But if you don't have that and you want to get knowledge from him and ask him questions, then you're going to do this. Thanks for clarifying that up. Van, I'm in, paid, went through, no tech. Awesome. Good to have you in, Van. I appreciate you, man. You're really going to love this. Congratulations. Tim, will there be any insight into how to advise our clients on crypto for a fee? So we have to be very cautious, Tim, on how we handle that, because Jeff is an advisor, and for him to advise you on how to advise your clients, there's a few rules that are going to be followed. But if you can ask Jeff anything you want, like this is no holds barred. But when you get a question, and if he can't answer it, he'll just tell you. But we want you to feel free to ask him anything. It really is. It's going to start about getting your own house in order, and then making you feel comfortable to have those conversations, in your virtual meetings, in your meetings that you're doing with your clients. Kimberly, I'm looking forward to more great training. Whoa, you're on a tear. By the way, ladies and gentlemen, one of the second cousins of Amy Poehler of Parks and Recreation is in this program. I love Amy Poehler and Parks and Recreation. So the fact that Kim is in, I mean, if Kim's doing it, don't you think you should be doing it? Thanks, Kim Poehler. Appreciate you. And she's in Indiana too, where, Parks and Rec was supposed to be shot. That's awesome. Appreciate you. All right. Will those of us participating in this masterclass be able to work directly with Jeff's firm without having the $1 million minimum investment? So Van, I know you're in, but just to be clear, working with Jeff in this mastermind means that you can ask him anything you want and attend his mastermind classes and ask him questions. So in that way, you're working with him, but you will not be able to bring money into his firm unless you have $1 million. Now, we might do something different down the road, but for now, that's what it is. Okay, awesome. So I answered that question, answered that. You guys are asking great questions. All right, I'm all in and excited. All right, Ross, great to have you here, my friend. Thanks for the opportunity. Jeremiah just joined. Beautiful. Really excited that you're here. Let's see. Okay, well, I think I answered all the questions. Guys, thank you so much for being here. We so appreciate you as advisors, and even more so, the fact that you're ahead of the curve, right? The fact that you saw this as an opportunity, you jumped in, even just to get some nuggets, some power nuggets from Jeff today is amazing. If you're in with us, I can't wait to work with you, and we'll be able to share some war stories to our kids and grandkids of how we were there at not the very beginning of Bitcoin, which I missed out on, and most of us did here, but we were still in the early days of Bitcoin, and we did so well. And by the way, here's what we're doing for our legacies. Here's what we're doing for you because of that. So I appreciate you guys so much. Thank you for who you are. Thank you for what you do for the industry. Keep being a force for good out there. We'll see you in the Crypto Mastermind. Bye for now.